Summer at my grandmother's countryside home had always been a tradition, a time when distant relatives reunited under one roof, bringing stories, laughter, and shared memories. This year, the house felt fuller than ever. Rooms overflowed with chatter, and the garden echoed with children's laughter. It was meant to be a joyful escape from city life. But joy has a way of masking things we're not yet ready to see. I was 19 then. Quiet, observant, more comfortable watching than joining in. Among the younger cousins running about, Aaliya stood out, not because she tried to, but because she couldn't help it. At 16, she was quiet like me, thoughtful, and always scribbling in her journal. We weren't related by blood. Our parents had remarried into the same family. But we'd grown close over the years. I saw in her a certain vulnerability, the kind you want to protect without even knowing why. Then there was Imran, our older cousin. 22, charming, loud, and endlessly admired. The adults praised his confidence, the kids trailed him like he was a movie star. But I'd always found something off about him, something hidden behind the easy smiles and casual arm drapes. He was overly familiar with people, especially the younger girls, in ways that made me uneasy, though I couldn't quite put it into words. The first 2 days were full of harmless fun. We played board games, stayed up late swapping stories, and helped set up decorations for an upcoming family dinner. I began noticing how often Imran found excuses to be near Aaliya, light touches on the shoulder, whispered jokes that made her smile nervously instead of laughing. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining things. That changed one afternoon. I was coming in from the orchard when I saw them in the hallway near the guest room. Imran was leaning against the wall, too close, whispering something I couldn't hear. Aaliya stood stiffly, her arms crossed tightly against her chest. Her eyes darted to me the moment she noticed I was there. He smiled and stepped back, making it seem like nothing had happened. Aaliya gave a small nod and quickly walked past me without saying a word. But in that split second, our eyes met, and I saw something she hadn't meant to show. Fear. It stuck with me. That night, as the family gathered around the bonfire, laughing and roasting corn, I watched Imran laugh with the adults while Aaliya sat a little apart, hugging her knees, eyes fixed on the flames. Something was wrong. And whether I was ready or not, I was becoming a part of it. The next morning, Aaliya barely met my eyes. She sat quietly at the breakfast table, stirring her tea until it went cold. Imran, on the other hand, was as loud and comfortable as ever, cracking jokes, passing around toast, performing for the room like it was his stage. But all I could think about was what I had seen the day before, that frozen moment between them. That look on Aaliya's face. As the day went on, I began noticing more. Aaliya no longer participated in group games. She declined a hike with the younger cousins. Even during family meals, she stayed close to the women, avoiding any corner where Imran might be. When she spoke, her voice was faint, cautious, like someone constantly calculating the weight of her words. I couldn't ignore it anymore. That evening, I stayed in the common room longer than usual, pretending to read, while subtly watching who went where. Around dusk, I saw Aaliya step out of the kitchen, clutching a notebook to her chest. She moved carefully, glancing over her shoulder as she walked toward the back staircase, the quieter wing of the house where some guest rooms were kept. A few minutes later, Imran passed by. He wasn't laughing this time. His movements were quieter, more deliberate. He followed the same path. Something in me snapped. I set the book aside and followed, careful to stay out of sight. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched long and dim. One of the doors was closed, the light inside faintly visible under the crack. I stepped closer and paused. There were voices, low and strained. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard Aaliya's voice, tight, hesitant. Then silence. Then, the sound of something shifting, a floorboard creaking. I knocked. The pause that followed was unnaturally long. Then, the doorknob turned and Imran opened the door, eyebrows raised in feigned surprise. "Hey," he said casually, blocking most of the doorway with his frame. "What's up?" I glanced past him. Aaliya sat on the edge of the bed, clutching her notebook, her face pale. Her eyes flicked up to mine, wide and unblinking. "I was looking for Aaliya," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. Imran chuckled. "Just chatting, she's all yours." He stepped aside, brushing past me as he left. I stepped in and closed the door gently. Aaliya didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her notebook tighter. "You okay?" I asked softly. She nodded, but her eyes filled with tears. That night, just past midnight, a soft knock came. At my door. I opened it to find Aaliya standing there in her hoodie, eyes red and voice barely a whisper. "Please," she said, "don't leave me alone tomorrow." I didn't ask questions, I just nodded and moved aside. Morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, but the house felt heavier than usual, like it too had absorbed the tension. Aaliya stayed close all day, barely a step behind me. No one in the family seemed to notice. To them, she was just a quiet girl enjoying her cousin's company. But I could sense her nerves. She flinched at sudden movements, avoided certain voices, and spoke only when spoken to. After lunch, I suggested we go for a walk by the creek at the edge of the property. It was quiet there, far from the eyes and ears of others. She agreed without hesitation. We walked in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you think anyone would believe me if I told the truth?" I looked at her. "I would. I already do." She stopped walking and sat on a large stone near the water's edge, her eyes fixed on the slow-moving current. "I didn't know how to say no," she murmured. "He kept saying we were just talking, that I was imagining things, but I wasn't. He made me uncomfortable. He touched my hand, stood too close, said things that didn't feel like jokes." Her voice cracked. She didn't cry, but her words trembled like glass on the verge of shattering. "I tried to leave the room yesterday," she continued, "but he blocked the door. He didn't hurt me, just scared me. Said I shouldn't tell anyone because no one would believe me." I sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "He was wrong," I said. "You're not imagining anything, and I'm here. I'll help." "You." She exhaled sharply, as if releasing days of pent-up fear. "You've always looked out for me. I never said it, but I noticed. You never talked over me. You saw me." I turned to her, startled by the weight in her words. "I used to think what I felt was just admiration," she whispered. "But it's more than that now. I feel safe with you. I trust you more than anyone in this house." I didn't know what to say at first. Part of me had always felt drawn to her, quietly, respectfully, but I never allowed it space. Our bond had formed through years of shared understanding, not flirty glances. Still, the emotion in her voice now stripped away any doubt. "I care. About you, too," I said honestly. "More than I should, probably. But this isn't about that right now. It's about protecting you. Whatever happens next, I'm with you." She smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. We sat there until the sun dipped behind the trees, the sky fading into soft orange. "We need to tell someone," I said gently. She nodded. "Let's tell Daddy. She'll listen." And in that moment, our connection shifted. Still tender, still careful, but no longer unspoken. That evening, as twilight settled over the courtyard and the family gathered for dinner, I felt the weight of what lay ahead. Aaliya sat beside me, her hand brushing mine under the table, a silent gesture of courage. We had agreed. Tonight we would tell Dottie. If anyone in the family would believe her, it was the matriarch who raised us all to value truth, even when it was uncomfortable. After dinner, while the others lingered over tea, I asked Dottie if we could speak to her privately. She looked at both of us, then nodded, sensing something unspoken between us. In her quiet bedroom, with the door closed behind us, Aaliya hesitated for a moment. Then she spoke, softly, steadily, laying bare the fear, the confusion, and the pressure Imran had imposed. She didn't embellish. She didn't accuse beyond what was true. She simply told her story. Dottie listened in silence, her face still but unreadable. When Aaliya finished, a heavy quiet followed. Then Dottie reached out and took her hand. "You were very brave to come to me," she said gently. "And you?" She looked at me. "Thank you for not staying silent." We thought that would be the hardest part, but it was only the beginning. That night, Dottie confronted Imran in private. We weren't present, but the shouting behind closed doors echoed down the hallway. By morning, Imran had packed and left early, citing urgent work. The adults whispered, uneasy. No one shared the full truth, but the change in tone was palpable. A boundary had been drawn. In the days that followed, Aaliya changed. Her voice grew stronger. She smiled more easily. She slept better, though nothing between us was rushed. Something unspoken lingered in our glances. Respect, trust, and a deepening care that neither of us dared define too quickly. On our final day at the house, I found her again by the creek. "You're leaving tomorrow," she said, her voice calm. "I'll call every day," I replied, "and visit when I can." She nodded, then looked at me with a softness that felt like closure and beginning at once. "You helped me find my voice," she said, "and maybe something more." I smiled. Whatever we are, it started with honesty. That's the only way it can grow. We didn't kiss. We didn't rush anything into the shape of a romance. But as we stood together by the water, the bond between us was real, fragile yet rooted in something far stronger than infatuation. Truth, protection, and the healing that only sincere connection can bring. It wasn't the kind of love story most would expect, but it was real. And for us, it was just beginning.